Hello and welcome to POKECOORD. The first generation had some hard-to-find Pokemon. Players were lucky to run into these back in the day. Here's a list of the top 17 rarest Pokemon from the first generation based on all Pokemon games. Let's start our top. Number 17. Tauros. This intimidating bull Pokemon has remained difficult to even spot in the wilderness, let alone catch, for most of its long history. This can be traced back to Red and Blue, which requires players to use the spotty Safari Balls to catch one exclusively in the Safari Zone. Yet, this extends all the way to Pokemon Go, which limits their sightings to North America, and even within the continent, the ornery bull can be tough to find and catch. However, most trainers find the effort well worth it. Despite originating as a simple normal type, Tauros impresses in a number of ways, particularly when it comes to speed and offensive prowess. Number 16. Moltres. Often overshadowed by its legendary bird counterparts, Moltres nonetheless is a fiery beast that can melt the opposition in battle, especially when using special moves. Even the simple act of flapping its wings yields powerful embers, and it can heal itself by submerging in the magma of an active volcano. It's an intimidating avian Pokemon, to say the least. This powerful phoenix is one of the most coveted prizes in Red and Blue, as it's not only strong but there's just one instance of the monster in Red and Blue. Players can come upon one during Victory Road near the game's conclusion, specifically on the second floor. Number 15. Zapdos. Usually considered the most powerful of the legendary bird trio, Zapdos is about as desired as they come in Red and Blue, short of Mewtwo of course. Like Moltres, Zapdos greatly shines when it comes to special attack, though is a tad weaker in terms of pure offense and defense. Still, this electrified bird can effectively zap its opponents into oblivion, with moves like Thunder and Thunderbolt. To obtain this highly rare Pokemon, players need to head to the northwest end of the power plant. Like others of its ilk, there is but one instance of this elusive bird, so it's best to be prepared. Number 14. Articuno. There's some debate regarding whether or not this icy avian is the best of the legendary birds, but it's hard to deny that it's the most majestic. It can be particularly tough to make a dent with this Pokemon, given its abilities to freeze fighters and endure many moves with its solid special defense. It's something of a paradox, as this bird has been known in the anime to guide travelers to safety, though it's equally as capable of putting others in great danger. As one might expect, only one exists in Red and Blue, and it's not an easy fight. Players must venture to Seafoam Island, all the way to the lowest level of the dungeon there, in the northwest corner. Number 13. Electabuzz. There are a couple of Pokemon from each generation that are usually locked to one specific game, ensuring players have to have both to fill their Pokédex or access to a friend that has the opposite title. Electabuzz is one such Pokemon, locked specifically to Pokemon Red. But even players with access to the original title may have a hard time snagging an Electabuzz for themselves. This particular Pokemon only has a 5% encounter rate and is only found within the power plant. It can take some time to secure an Electabuzz, depending on how lucky players get. 12 is Scyther. Scyther is easily one of the most frustrating Pokemon to catch thanks to its location and game-locked status. Players who own Pokemon Blue didn't originally have a shot at the creature, which was only available in Pokemon Red and Pokemon Yellow. But even those that owned a Scyther-compatible copy faced an uphill battle when it came to capturing the Mon. The catch difficulty was blamed on a combination of low encounter rate and the fact that Scyther was only found in the Safari Zone, an area that frustrated many trainers thanks to its annoying mechanic that forced players to use Safari Balls and rocks to catch Pokemon, rather than their dedicated team. On top of the aggravating mechanics, unlucky players would have to search for quite some time to even encounter a Scyther, thanks to its pitiful 4% encounter rate. Number 11. Gengar. As a potent, third-stage Ghost-type Pokemon, Gengar maintains a ghastly appearance. It's not possible to catch a Gengar within the first-generation games. Players first need a friend with a compatible trading device. This friend has to receive a Haunter in a trade, then trade back the evolved Gengar. The opportunity to get Gengar, the generation's most powerful ghost type, is well worth the hassle. It can learn unique moves like Nightshade, Hypnosis, and Dream Eater. Number 10 is Porygon. According to Porygon's Pokemon Red and Blue Pokédex, a Pokemon that consists entirely of programming code. Capable of moving freely in cyberspace. Despite being a mediocre Pokemon to have on one's lineup, Porygon is one of the rarest of the first generation. Pokemon Blue's Porygon is 8,300 coins, and it costs a whopping 9,999 coins in Pokemon Red. For most players, purchasing this Pokemon is out of reach until late in the game. Number 9. Machamp. According to Machamp's Pokemon Yellow Pokédex entry, one arm alone can move mountains. Using all 4 arms, this Pokemon fires off awesome punches. Machamp is one of those Pokemon that seldom appears in trainers' lineups because of its rarity. This heavyweight, superpowered Pokemon evolves from a Machoke into a Machamp after trading. To make things more tedious, one cannot find a Machoke until near the end of the game at Victory Road. Unless one has been leveling a Machop until it turns 28, a Machamp is out of reach. Number 8 is Lapras. The Sylph Company headquarters is the only place in Generation 1 where Lapras is found. Lapras could be considered not uncommon because Generation 1 players pass this lady while progressing. However, some players swiftly move through the section without talking to the correct NPC. Unlike in Generation 2, where seeing Lapras can be a weekly occurrence in the Union Cave, Lapras is only found one time in Saffron City. This majestic Pokemon resembles the Loch Ness Monster, adding to the mystery surrounding Lapras. 7 is Kangaskhan. Some Pokemon are much more annoying to catch than others thanks to low encounter and catch rates. Kangaskhan suffers from both of these things, thanks to an abysmal 4% maximum encounter rate in Pokemon Red and Blue. It's better for Pokemon Yellow players, at 15%, but its location can be another frustrating aspect of securing this Pokemon. Kangaskhan is only found in the Safari Zone, meaning players will have to catch it using only Safari Balls and rocks. It makes the entire process even more of an annoyance, as players aren't guaranteed to catch one even if they manage to encounter it. Number 6. Aerodactyl. A skeleton of this fossil Pokemon is found at the Pewter City Museum, but it's the old amber key item that grants players a Pokemon. While other fossils in the first generation of the Pokemon games are obtained as part of the main story, Aerodactyl's old amber is optional. Players must go to the Pewter City Museum to receive old amber. Old amber differs because it's not named after a Pokemon but rather after its composition. Head to the Cinnabar Lab, where a scientist will create Aerodactyl. Number 5. Dragonite. This pseudo-legendary Pokemon is considered one of the first generation's rarest. Dragonite is a dual-type dragon and flying with the potential to learn a wide range of moves through TMs. It's clear that Dragonite is a valuable asset to any lineup, yet few have one in the first generation of the Pokemon games. Of the original 150 Pokemon, Dragonite is not easily found. The only way to get a Dragonite is to trade from another game or purchase a Dratini from the Celadon Game Corner and spend hours leveling it. Dratini becomes a Dragonair at level 30, which becomes a Dragonite at 55. 4. Alakazam. Catching the first stage Pokemon of the Kadabra evolution chain is not easy. Every Abra knows the teleport move, meaning they flee immediately in a battle. To get an Abra, wait until players have a Great Ball or Ultra Ball and toss it immediately in the encounter. Players can evolve Abra into a Kadabra, then trade Kadabra to evolve it into Alakazam. The other option for finding a Kadabra is in the unknown dungeon, Cerulean Cave, the most perilous place in the first generation games. Either way, obtaining an Alakazam requires several steps. Seldom is an Alakazam found on a Generation 1 trainer's lineup. Number 3. Omastar. This Pokemon doesn't always have strained eyes, except for when it gets angry. Omastar is a prehistoric Pokemon that was thought to be extinct. Scientists were able to recreate an Omanite using the similarly rare Helix fossil. Omanite evolves into an Omastar at the high level of 40. Few players put in the time to get this spiral Pokemon, aside from Pokédex completionists. The number of steps required to get Omastar makes it one of the rarest. Number 2 is Kabutops. Like an Omastar, obtaining a Kabutops involves giving a fossil to scientists who turn it into an ancient Pokemon. To get Kabutops in Generation 1, players first have to obtain a Kabuto. When Kabuto hits level 40, it becomes a Kabutops. As a rock-water-type Pokémon, Kabutops is a worthy addition to any lineup. By leveling up, it learns moves like Slash and Hydro Pump. And finally, the most rarest Pokémon is Mewtwo. Found deep in the unknown dungeon of Cerulean City is a Pokémon. As stated in the diary on September 1st of Pokémon Red and Blue, Mewtwo is far too powerful. We have failed to curb its vicious tendencies. Before venturing into the most dangerous cave of the generation, players learn much about Mewtwo and its enormous power. Saving the Master Ball until this point is logical. For everyone else, catching Mewtwo is not easily accomplished. And this way we finish our top for the most rarest Pokémon from Original 150. Thanks for watching and see you next time.